There is a big move coming for Bitcoin in the short term. And this is why I think a lot of influencers on YouTube and Twitter have begun to tell people they're moving out of altcoins and into Bitcoin. But using charts like this, not to mention this, we definitely can't forget to mention a chart like this, and especially this. We're going to answer that question for you, and importantly also for me, because I made a video 1.5 months ago talking about the way in which I could have played this bull run 10 times better, making heaps more money and in such a safer way. And that was buying Bitcoin all throughout the last bear market and essentially having one point in time, selling it all and buying altcoins. Now, I believe that moment to do that is likely right now in a non-financial way. This is what I think is happening. So don't go ape into a whole bunch of altcoins just because of this video. All this video serves as an open diary for my thoughts and my research, because I think we're in for some more volatility here. And so you would assume going into Bitcoin to hedge against volatility, hedge against risk is the smart thing to do. And I think it is. But you'll soon see here that depending on a few factors lining up in the short term, we could have a very sudden change of events, which might lead you in a very bad situation if you're someone who believes selling alts right now, buying Bitcoin is the only option you have. So let me explain more. So essentially, we've had some news today that Fed Powell is not going to be doing the Fed put, essentially saving the stock market, saving equities in the sense of the volatility that's happening right now. We'll see. I mean, I'm not too sure. You know, obviously it's going to be calling his bluff at some point, right? Because there will be a point in which he will have to intervene. I don't know if he wants to kind of give out that hope just yet. So we'll see. But needless to say, the volatility index here is also showing we're in a bearish momentum, right? So all this chart here, it's kind of like a Frankenstein of this chart that Ask Crypto Wealth created. I'm pretty much taking the Bitcoin market cap and the VIX, which is this purple line, and adding a 50-day moving average in blue. Okay, so Bitcoin's price is behind it, as you can see there. And so when we're beneath the blue line, okay, that means that we're in bearish momentum. When this purple line breaks above the blue line, okay, that's a switch into bullish momentum so long as we can sustain it. You can see here multiple times we do have, you know, situations where it might come out. So you want to look at multiple different factors in conjunction with this. But when it does move out, it's more of a confirmation that sentiment's changed, all right, momentum's changed, and we're looking more bullish. So that's one thing. Short term, definitely volatile. If you're looking as a trader to hedge against risk, to hedge against some downside, of course, Bitcoin's your best bet if you must be in a market, right? If you must be in a crypto asset, there's your answer, all right? Non-financial advice, of course. It's also more evident to me as well, we're in this sort of downtrend. If I kind of point this out for you guys, we're kind of struggling to break above that trend line. We'll see how it progresses. But also M2 is expected to fall here soon as well. I follow a 15-week lead, which is a little bit longer than Raw Paul's like 10 to 11-week lead. And this kind of insinuates as well some more unrest, okay, which we haven't quite gone through just yet. I don't think we'll put in more lows, to be honest with you, but I do think we might have to fight to stay, near enough or above this downtrend. So we'll soon see. But I think most importantly for the mid to long term, this is kind of where I want to take the conversation mainly here, because, I have had DMs, people asking me about this, like, Kyron, should I be mainly in Bitcoin right now? Is it worthwhile selling some of my more volatile alts and maybe moving to the large caps or again into Bitcoin? And I kind of want to spend the rest of this video talking about that situation, right? Because there is the ascending channel we are in right now, which is Bitcoin fighting tooth and nail to stay in because it is the bull run channel. It's happened every single time. I'm not too sure people don't look at this more, right? Every single bull run we have this ascending channel, and Bitcoin respects that channel, okay? And what I want to mainly focus on is the outcome of the channel being the breakout here, because every single bull run we break out of it. Well, what comes from that, you can see here, is alt season, or particularly just a period of euphoric growth for Bitcoin. You can see on this chart right here. And if I show you guys alts as well, alts in this purple maroon color line, from the breakout of this trend, they explode as well with Bitcoin. Okay, so this is here back in 2013. This is over here back in 2017. This is here back in 2021. Again, keep your eyes on the breakout of the upper trend line here. And this is us now. But again, every single cycle, once we're out of that, we have euphoric growth. So in my personal opinion, and as I'll soon get into, alt season can be more specifically defined as Bitcoin breaking out of this ascending channel. You can also notice as well Bitcoin's dominance, which is purple now, like falling dramatically at that same point. So you can see in this 2017 cycle, once we broke above that upper trend line, we have a bit of a consolidation period and then a free fall down. Consolidation, free fall, until eventually, again, it goes to its highs, in which it bottoms and then goes up again. Now, keep in mind, that's Bitcoin's dominance. So what it means for altcoins is this, right? This is total 2 over Bitcoin. So this is every altcoin, including Ethereum, versus Bitcoin. And you can see the massive growth that comes here from this. So alts just fly, alts just consume Bitcoin. And yet remember, the thing that actually caused this, to cause essentially alt season, this green zone, is Bitcoin breaking out of this exact channel we're in right now. So to bring that back to M2, all I'm saying is what I'm looking for myself is what is going to push Bitcoin out of this ascending channel to then cause likely alt season. Now, I think it's going to have to be a multitude of things. First of all, on the crypto side of life, we've got all the bullish catalysts in the world to help perpetuate that, right? To help us continue up. What we don't have is macro support. Now, that's obvious, right? But what we do know is global M2 right now is having the largest turnaround, right? The largest U-turn in this entire bull market. Massive growth has come through here, much larger than this move, much larger than this move, and more similar to the move back here that sent us out of the bear market lows into the bull run. Now, as I've said, one of my cardinal rules is never, ever, ever try to square up the gains made at specific points in M2 to what could happen in Bitcoin, highs and lows, because it's not a one-to-one, right? But it is important to note the rapid change of pace. This, I believe, is a very bullish sign. Because if we even have a similar amount of growth as to here or the growth here, that would mean that we will push at some point here in the next few months above the upper trend line. Those previous moves back here were around 80% gains. This one was 86%. This one was about 84% gains, right? So again, the aim here, what I'm trying to say is once we break out of the upper trend, that should be it and sustain above it, of course, right? We didn't stand above it over here in touch point 2. So that's what we're expecting, a 78% move or larger, and then a bounce for support, and then we see a continuation up. That is what we're looking for. And again, at that same moment, we will see Bitcoin dominance fall. I showed you back here in 2017. If I zoom in here to the previous cycle, again, once we broke out of this ascending channel, okay, you can see Bitcoin's dominance did actually take one more final launch very sharply, and then it came crumbling down here. So much of a muchness, we had that second launch at this consolidation point over here once we broke out. So here, okay, Bitcoin kind of came back a little bit, and then alts kind of had that, moment for the rest of the cycle, essentially. So while Bitcoin's dominance begins trending and trending and trending and trending, I believe it will continue until we again break out of this channel. Now, we have to look at a multitude of macro factors that will support a large move out of the channel, because again, it's kind of like, yes, Bitcoin's got a lot of support at this bottom trend line, but it also has a lot of resistance on the upper trend. Actually, matter of fact, the reason why I actually broke out here was because the global business cycle had a nice little peak here, and so did global liquidity, right? So it kind of had these two macro factors helping it launch out here. But again, it really needs to be supported with a bunch of, really, really strong macro factors. And one of those, I think, will be the Dixie falling, all right? And right now, it's down 10% since the year start. Back here in January, since Trump took office, we are down 10%. Now, to put it in perspective how large of a drop this is, we've seen this 3 times, besides right now, since back here in 2015. First of all was when Trump took office back in 2017. We had a 12% fall, and what happened when that happened? Well, we had, as you can see in the orange line back here, huge growth in Bitcoin's price. Huge growth. Now, fast forward again to the previous cycle. What happened to really kick things up a gear? We had the Dixie falling 13%. And what happened as recently as back in 2022? Same thing, right? In the bear market lows, we had the Dixie falling, I believe, a major catalyst to help us get out of that slump we were in. And so with this chart, you can clearly see that when the Dixie falls and falls in these large increments, it's a large contributor to helping us push out of this ascending channel that we, kind of get into since the start of the bear market to that final altcoin push. So you can see when we're in this channel, the very last touch here happens to coincide with the local high of the Dixie, and that last push out comes from that mass drop in the Dixie, right? So again, we come back over here to 2021, a similar sort of thing. That last touch on the bottom trend here happens to be that local high for the Dixie before it falling, helping push us out of that channel. Now, of course, the pandemic was one of the reasons why we actually were falling quite a lot before that point. But again, local high, and we came crumbling down. So that's kind of happening again here. You can kind of see the Dixie kind of falling a lot at these, trend touch bottoms. And it's a very good sign, honestly. It's a similar pattern that has been playing out now for the last few cycles. And I've highlighted that with this green marker here. So you can kind of see that, and you can see alts at that exact moment launch. Now, I'll zoom out because it looks kind of skewed when you zoom in. It looks like there's similar returns to Bitcoin, but they're really not, right? So you can see here, massive launch. The trajectory that alts were on here was obviously quite good, but it, again, took it up a notch here. So same thing happened in 2021 or 2020, should I say. Alts were doing okay for themselves, but here at that breakout, they really took charge. And you can see over here right now, alts have been doing quite well over the last cycle, nowhere near as good as Bitcoin. And, so now that, Dixie's falling, hopefully we see that large move as it has done in the last two cycles. Let me summarize very briefly here. It's kind of counterintuitive when you think about it. We're in this ascending channel here for Bitcoin, which again is like that bull run channel. We have a lot of resistance at the top, a lot of support at the bottom, as we're noticing, okay? To get us out of that, we have to have the macro factors that actually are playing out right now. And as we see global M2 continue to rise and rise, may give us every possible thing we need to fully send it. The only thing I really do want to see that I think will 100% push us out is a switch into expansion here for the global business cycle, and this continuation in this channel for global liquidity. Once we have, again, global liquidity, you can see here marked by the peaks in Bitcoin's price, peak as well. Once we have the same business cycle also helping bring up, or at least insinuate this consumer confidence in the markets, then I think we are going to have a recipe for success here. Once Bitcoin's price breaks out of this, it's funny because its dominance starts to really fall off. And usually at that point, again, like I said, that's when we have liftoff in Bitcoin's price. So again, you'll see the same pattern play out here. If I just overlay Bitcoin's price in the background with its dominance here in the foreground, you can clearly see that when we consolidated over here in Bitcoin's dominance in summer of the 2017 cycle, and then it fell in summer, that's when we really lifted off. Okay, again, same thing happened over here in the last cycle. This actually happened in spring. Okay, we kind of consolidated and then we fell off a cliff into summer. That was, again, the breakout here out of the channel, but again, it favored altcoins over Bitcoin. And so I think where we are right now, after spring, before summer, I think we're on track still, right? I don't see why things are any different apart from the fact that this long dredge upwards, this long haul was different to the previous where it kind of went straight up. But like if you have a look at it from the lows in 2018, right, the end of the last cycle, to the absolute peak high of the previous in Bitcoin's dominance, that took 1,085 days. And if you actually have a look from the absolute lows here in Bitcoin's dominance from the last cycle to exactly the same time frame as here, that would roughly put us speaking about August of this year. So all I'm trying to really say is we could likely expect a continuation of Bitcoin's dominance until around as late as, June, July, August, or September of this year before a massive sudden crash like what's happened every other time. Keep in mind, that crash in Bitcoin's dominance, all right, this falling down, technically happens from Bitcoin's breakout of the ascending channel. It happens here, and, well, we don't have much data, but it would have happened likely back here as well, back in 2012, right? So it happens at the breakout of this. So I think, and again, this is just a guess of mine, I think looking at actually this over Bitcoin's dominance might be more of a tell. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe Bitcoin's dominance starts falling first, and then this begins breaking up. I just don't know if I believe that right now, because the way I see it, Bitcoin almost, as we've always known it, acts as that siren for the whole world saying, hey, look at me, look at me, look at crypto. When it breaks out of this channel, usually it kind of starts with favorable macro conditions, and that leads to sudden surges in Bitcoin's price, which captivates a lot of people, and they go, well, damn, everyone in crypto is making a quick 10x. Bitcoin's just gained 50% from the quick move out of the channel, or 80% or 100% maybe, and they come in. So all that means is Bitcoin could tread around here until maybe September even before it breaks out, hits that upper trend for support, and then we find it finally causing alt season. Oh, and before I forget as well, I must mention, I think a big catalyst and reason why people tend to flock into altcoins once Bitcoin breaks the upper trend lines is just because when it does that, it is usually, historically speaking, at all-time highs. So you see this happens right here. It pretty much touches the all-time high. So people freak out, hey, Bitcoin's hit all-time highs. This thing is going to go parabolic. The same thing happens here. Actually, it's a little bit higher. Okay, so that's obviously a good thing as well. And the last time it happened, of course, it was a little bit under. You can see we rocketed though, we rocketed straight up without really any hesitation at all. And I think that's obviously because of the pandemic, because of QE, markets were going crazy at that time. Now, obviously this time around, we won't have that luxury of, hey, Bitcoin's broken through all-time highs. So I think the reason people want to come into crypto, besides the massive gains, besides maybe loose monetary policy, is because of this. I do believe that the S&P will go flying based on the 26.5-year cycle that is playing out here. Okay, we are likely going to have a monumental explosion like we did back in the 2000s. Now, if I actually pull up the 2000s situation here, you can see that we've had this minor correction as we're experiencing it right now. And if this plays out again, we're going to see some pretty juicy returns. So I do believe that the reason people would want to come into crypto, besides the all-time high, is that they're making so much money in the S&P that they do want to throw money into alts at this point in time. I mean, it's just a theory of mine, of course, and it's not going to be as simple as S&P go up, altcoins go up even higher. But when you have loose monetary policy, when you have favorable macro conditions, when you have equity markets pumping, of course, people are going to want to go to the longest and furthest point along the risk curve beyond their, mutual funds, beyond treasuries way down here, beyond some of their favorite top stocks. They're going to want to go to their favorite shit coins at the very, very end, because that's what's going to get them insane returns. It happens almost every single time in a nascent market. So all in all, what's my 2 cents on the idea of like selling altcoins and buying Bitcoin? Well, it depends on your risk profile. Now, I don't know who you are. Maybe you're someone who's fed up with altcoins and maybe you can't stomach anything else. You just want to make your money back, buy a Bitcoin over the course of time. That's great, fantastic, cool, right? And I definitely think in the short term, speaking here, if we do trend sideways for quite a while, in the sense that maybe it does take until September for us to actually break out of this, thus causing the breakdown in Bitcoin's dominance, therefore causing alt season, then obviously being more in Bitcoin at that point will be favorable, because likely alts will probably bleed during that time a little bit more. But there is a situation that does play out here like it did back in the previous cycle, where around September, pretty much the equivalent of where we could be right now in the bottom trend line here before the final move up, where maybe you did decide to switch into Bitcoin and out of altcoins. And what happened there was you had projects like Chainlink at $9. You had, Litecoin at $47, Cardano at, 8.9 cents. And then a month or two later, you had everything basically almost double. You had Cardano at 14 cents now. You had Litecoin at $82. You had Chainlink at $14. To some degree, some coins have moved more than others, but essentially because you moved out, you can see Bitcoin here went from 10,000 or 11,000 to 18,000. So it's kind of hard to judge whether or not the position in Bitcoin will outmove altcoins. And at that, if it does, you'll have enough time to be able to then sell your Bitcoin and put it into alts and still be happy with your entry levels. So, the way I look at life and the way I look at crypto especially is that what's the risk and reward for something, right? Are you going to be gaining significant potential reward and again, offsetting risk for doing this than you would just sitting in your positions right now? So I'm not a financial advisor. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide that, but that's just my 2 cents. And again, so if you're asking me, I ain't touching my alts. My alts are my alts. They're sitting, I'm not, selling any of them. If some of the weaker ones have a breakout and I'm happy to break even on those coins, I'll do it and put them into the high quality coins. But I've got money in the market right now that I'm comfortable to see grow. And, it'll change my life, basically. And that's the way I think we have to look at it. Not so much in the sense of, can I buy 10 Lamborghinis? But it's more the sense of, will the money I make be able to change the, position I am now financially? So with that being said, everyone, thank you all for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, let me know with a like down below, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.